The contest for State Superintendent of Public Instruction is regarded as the most competitive of all the races for statewide office this year. With Republican Joy Hoffmeister and Democrat John Cox locked in a statistical dead heat, the candidates are using the final days of the campaign to distance themselves from their opponent, as well as the current state superintendent.
Recent polls give little hint about who will take the reins next year at the State Department of Education.
It's a toss of the coin right now.
Bill Shepard says surveys by Sooner Poll show the candidates virtually tied, with about 17% of the electorate still undecided, many of them elderly.
They make up the largest portion of any kind of age group on election day. And yet, in most times, they do not really care about school superintendent. They don't have children in schools. They don't really see that something that is of importance to them.
For state school superintendent, one candidate stands out.
John Cox and Joy Hoffmeister are trying to win over those undecided voters by delineating the differences between them. Hoffmeister cites her business background as president of Kumon Math and Business Centers in Tulsa and argues she has the experience to run a large state agency like the Department of Education, something she says Cox lacks.
My opponent has been an administrator for 20 years in the same location, and that is actually great for those kids because it does provide the kind of continuity that we know has an academic impact. But it is not the right fit to be able to come in and work with our school districts and school leaders across the state.
Cox maintains his experience as a superintendent gives him a better grasp of what public education needs, and compares Hoffmeister to Janet Barisi, who was elected 4 years ago without an educational background.
I've had four years of taking a beating in the gut from somebody who doesn't know public education. My opponent has not lived it. She has not lived public education. She's been here 15 years in Tulsa and has not been in public education as a teacher. I couldn't even hire her at my school to be a teacher or a principal.
Whoever wins the race will face the task of developing new educational standards for Oklahoma. Cox and Hoffmeister have both been critical of the Common Core education standards, which the legislature voted to scrap this year. Hoffmeister says she has an 8-year plan that involves bringing together educators, parents, and businesses to suggest methods of improving education.
We can't continue to build the highway 3 miles at a time, and that's what we have done in Oklahoma in our funding, as well as in our testing. We kind of have the house that Jack built. It's time to have a master plan so that we can address immediate needs and lingering challenges that continue to plague our state.
Cox wants to roll back many of the changes that were implemented in recent years, such as the A through F grading system for schools and the third grade reading test. He also favors reducing the overall number of tests.
I would love to see Oklahoma move towards using ACT Aspire to actually 3rd through 10th grade math and reading, allow our students to train on taking the ACT as they go up, and then as juniors pay for everybody to take the ACT.
On the issue of education funding, Hoffmeister says, as a Republican, she can work better with a Republican-controlled legislature to increase appropriations for education.
I watched Janet Barisi do that with very little preparation. She did not say, here's what we did with the money that you entrusted to us last year. Here's what we need for the mandates you've just passed that you want us to successfully implement, and then share with them the vision for what our classroom and students need in order to be successful.
Cox says he'll advocate for $400 million in additional funding for education. He also says there's $50 to $75 million available in the superintendent's activity budget that could be shifted to the classroom.
Plus, we have about $31 million set back right now for virtual charter schools, which has no accountability within itself. We don't even know if the teachers are certified that are teaching that. Those are pockets of money that I would have control over that I could shift over to help our public schools.
With the race remaining close, voter turnout is expected to make the difference. Political consultant Pat McFerrin sees much of Cox's support coming from rural Oklahoma.
We saw him very successfully use that and motivate that group during the Democrat primary. I do think that Joy Hoffmeister has a base in Tulsa especially that will battle that to a great extent. So the issue becomes what happens in central Oklahoma. Where do these voters go on this type of an election?
Voters will make their decision on Tuesday.